Okay, everybody, welcome to the Tuesday afternoon sponsored showdown class. This is going to be our first in a series of 4 implementation classes. So based on your feedback in class and on the Q&A, and most importantly through support, we've had a lot of requests, people wanting to see everything implemented live and do more over-the-shoulder demonstrations, because everybody, of course, we all are different in our flow, but some of us are more visual learners than others, and sometimes it's nice to kind of see how I think through things, right, as I move through my decisions. So today we're going to start. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a quick overview before we dive into today's class of how we're going to structure the next 4 weeks, and more importantly, what we'll be covering in each of the 4 weeks, so you can be prepared to be here or to go back and reference the recording or the Q&A as soon as you have time. So this Tuesday, and I'm going to go ahead and do an implementation on each of the sessions rather than just doing Q&A on Thursdays. I'm going to do a short implementation on Thursdays as well. So I'll be doing a Tuesday and Thursday implementation during this series. So it's almost like 8 classes versus 4, but I think there's a lot for us to cover, and I think it'll be useful for you guys to see some of the principles done more than once, or sometimes done like in a beginning phase and then an advanced phase. So let's start out with class 9, which is this week. We're going to go ahead in this week's classes, and I'm going to call them, A and B, which is Tuesday, Thursday. We're going to be talking about keyword research and campaign outlines, right? How to set your match types, how to go ahead and create good campaign outlines, how to do your competitive and keyword research, how to use that research to build out your campaign structure, and how to do really good targeting to make sure your ad campaigns convert. On Tuesday, we're going to look at a campaign today that is a brand new product. So no traffic, no statistics. We have no search term report. We're going in completely new, which will be something that every single person in the training will do at some point, because it's highly unlikely that you have an Amazon business and you will not be launching new products, and many of them. So this is a course that even if it doesn't apply to you today, it will in the future. So we're just going to start with a totally green product, no data. And then on Thursday, we're going to do the same type of keyword research, only with a search term report from a very well-established product, a product that's scaling. And we're going to go ahead and look at what it would look like to do the keyword research I've taught, competitive research I've taught, and then kind of overlay that on top of a good search term report with a lot of conversion data, and then build that into the new kind of phase 2 campaign outline. So those are going to be the 2 classes for this week. When we get into class 10, we're going to be talking about cleaning up messy campaigns, and boy, there are a few of them, and not that they're so messy as much as they're so big. I think there's a lot of sprawl when I look at the campaigns when they are messy. It's just a little spread out. We're just going to condense those and get things really grouped and structured for conversion. We're going to start in the first class looking at just kind of campaign cleanup, but then we're going to talk a lot about how to structure campaigns and ASINs, which we had a lot of questions during the Q&A on that, within the 2 classes. So 10A and B are both going to be on campaign cleanup, campaign structure overall, and how to kind of group your ASINs and your keywords and your historical data into a new structure. Then we're going to go into class 11, A and B, A being Tuesday, B being Thursday, and we're going to talk about search term mining. We're going to cover how to move your keywords from, your converting keywords out of the STR. This is all about the gold, right? But this first week is just about gold mining, right? Just coming into your search term report and finding the gold. We're not going to be covering anything about what to do with the bad stuff. We're just going to go in and find the gold, because that's, how you scale. And then we'll move into the next week and talk about how to get the bad stuff optimized. But the very first one in 11A and B, we're just going to do search term mining, looking at new keywords, how to sort those new keywords, how to add those new search terms into your campaigns, how to select them, how to structure them with match types, and just grouping and all of the same stuff that we've covered along the way. Now we'll get into class 12, and that'll be kind of, if we're doing like the good, the bad, and the ugly, class 12 would be the ugly. We're going to go ahead and we're going to really dive into keywords that aren't converting at a target ACoS, mining negative keywords out of your search term reports. Both of those things are consistent strategies and consistently essential. We'll talk about pausing keywords within the campaign manager on that module as well. But we're really going to cover just regular old search term mining prior to that, so you guys get a good view of how to get the good stuff out of there, because that's the gold. And then we'll cover how to get the bad stuff kind of capped. Really, the only reason we even pay attention to bad stuff is to eliminate wasted ad spend, right? So the real good stuff we're trying to be analytical with, it's a separate process, stuff that's working versus stuff that's not. And we'll cover that in class 12, stuff that's not working. And we'll talk about setting max CPCs, moving stuff to buy, readjusting bids, different things we do to manage our budget. So that's going to be the 12 weeks in a nutshell. The last 9 through 9, 10, 11, 12 will all be implementation. In terms of everybody has submitted some sample campaigns, I've reviewed every single one of them and I've requested assets and I've been inside Seller Central and I've had search term reports sorted and organized and we're done. So we have looked at the data upside down on all of these campaigns. So you'll get an email this afternoon letting you know if we're using your campaigns, when we're using your campaigns, and how we're using your campaigns. The only person that didn't get that email is Julie, my good friend Julie, who did an amazing job on this new product. And we're going to go ahead and kind of go through her stuff today. For everybody else, I'll have an email with the updates in terms of what we're going to do with what you've sent us. The other thing there that I thought was really good to bring up to everybody in the sessions is things I saw consistently across the campaigns that were submitted to me for approval. One thing I saw that a lot of people were trying to make decisions with not enough data. There were a lot of search term reports that just didn't have enough data to make decisions. You really need significant orders. And if you have a limited budget and you need to spend more time to get that data, it's not a big deal because you really need enough data to make things move within your account. So I did notice that some of the search term reports that I received just didn't have enough data to make really good decisions or do like strategic advertising. Another thing that I noticed that I think is definitely causing conversion issues across multiple accounts that I reviewed, and you know who you are because you submitted your products to me and you'll know if this applies to you, is products that had a really unique styling but then targeting kind of generic keywords. And we're going to talk a lot about that in today's implementation. When you kind of have two directions you can take, and both of them can cause issues for you. If you have a very unique styling, right? Like if you're looking at these slippers, they're very uniquely styled. They're going to have a definite kind of certain user that's going to buy these certain price point, and we're going to cover it all in detail here in a minute. But there's a lot of products that had very unique patterns, everything from stripes to kind of wild patterns. And when you start to get things that have a very unique style and you're hitting general keywords, it's almost impossible to get those things to convert quite the way you would like to. So we're going to review a lot of that over the weeks as we go, including on Thursday. But I think it's important to know that sometimes the more uniquely styled a product is, the less of a good fit it is for a general keyword. I saw a lot of that, which would cause some conversion issues. Another thing I saw was generic products that looked almost identical to the competition, almost identical, where there was no differentiating factor, which makes that a very challenging as well. It's a challenging funnel to get onto general keywords for the simple fact that if your stuff looks like all the other competitors, it's hard for them to go back and refine your brand or your variety. If there's no variation, like these slippers are fairly distinct, right? So someone sees this picture and when they go back to refine this product, they're going to easily see this again. I had some more generic products that I'll show in class that I think are problematic. If you have a product that looks like every other product on the page, it's going to be very hard for a shopper to distinguish between them and then go back and find yours. And you could bleed a little bit of advertising money that way. So those are like the only real issues I saw. Everyone's done an incredible job. Everybody had scale groups and everybody had their search term reports. I mean, it was an awesome, awesome thing to see what you guys have done. So let's dive into today's session and go top to bottom now that you guys know what to expect over the next weeks. And let's go ahead and go deep into Julie's campaign. So the main thing we're going to start with is that these are going to be the slippers, and these are not listed yet. These are a brand new product, and Julie's still finalizing her product pages, and she's got her product images, and she's done some incredible keyword research, right? So the first thing that I'm going to do when I see this product and someone sends it to me to advertise is I'm going to go ahead and go to Amazon, right? Because I need to learn more about this market. So the first thing I'm going to do is so these are slippers. So I know I'm going to start with the word slippers, and I'm going to go to Amazon and their women's slippers. So I'm going to go ahead and look at women's slippers. Now, the main thing you have to pay attention to here, which is why in the early competitive analysis class, I really taught you guys that you have to pay attention to, and this is something from testing, and this is something from data, and this is something from doing search for 15 years that is conclusive, is you have to pay attention to the features and benefits of your product, especially in e-commerce, how they line up with the features and benefits of what Amazon is already ranking. The reason for this is because this stuff is ranking because, and I'm going to turn off my Helium 10 tool because you guys don't need to see any of those stats. Okay, so when I look at this, the thing that really is I'm going to be looking at a few different things. I'm going to be trying to say, okay, not just what's sponsored, because that's not really relevant. What I'm trying to say is not what is in Amazon's either, but what is Amazon's choice? Like, what are these top ranked organic products related to slippers? Okay. And so when I start to look at that, the first thing I notice here is that people are buying fur lined slippers. A lot of the styles, as I scroll down the page, are fur lined. I'm definitely going to take note of that in my mind, because that means that when you go to Amazon on the organic listings, and you put in a keyword like women's slippers, when you see these things, this is not like that Amazon prefers these. This is that the buyer prefers these. These are the most frequently visited or purchased, most likely both, products in the whole ecosystem for women's slippers. So when they bring these things in, it's important for you to take note that the algorithm likes these things because the shopper likes these things. So it's important to think about the fact that if that's the case, it's good if you have a different, say, stylized product like these wool slippers. There's nothing wrong with that, but just know that the average Amazon shopper is going to be inclined to buy some of these other styles. So to do this campaign effectively, we're going to have to use heavy negatives, right? Because if you look immediately, there's definitely this like fur lined look. There's some suede going on. There's some like kind of mule type slip on, like clog type shapes. There's also these kind of these kind of animal type fuzzy slippers. Another one here is they have these kind of like moccasin type slippers that look like shoes. And I think it's important to distinguish here that they have soles on them, right? You really need to look like the shopper. I mean, these are house slippers, yes, but if you go down here to the fuzzy dog ones, there's no bottom on those. But the majority of some of these best sellers have these kind of shoe-like soles, right? There's no question that is coming into the shopper's view. These are what are popular and selling high volume. So they've got these really thick kind of rubber soles. And again, there's nothing wrong with having a product that doesn't have these things. It's just important to know that you're going to have to filter all the clicks in the general market to avoid wasting money in advertising, because advertising is a sales game. It can only be used for sales. So when you're using it for sales and sales history, it's important that you get these right keywords in. So I would go ahead and keep going through this very first page, and I would be very like getting a solid feel for what's going on in the slipper market. And you can't spend enough time doing this. It's a really key part before you start advertising to eliminate wasted ad dollars. So then I start to look at the fact there's some suede, there's some shearling. I've got some like memory foam slippers that are very popular down here. I've got these ballerina slippers that are very distinct. They have like the bow and they look like ballet slippers. Then I've got these like flip-flop slippers, right? So I'm going to look at all these different styles. And as I come back, I'm going to be paying close attention to these as I build my keyword list, because I know that my product doesn't look like those in certain ways. In some ways it does, in other ways it doesn't. So I have to be very careful to filter a lot of these kind of broad general things out of my campaigns to make sure I can actually convert the traffic and have really good results in ACOS. So that's going to be the first thing I look at. So then I go ahead over, just like we talked about, I go to the bestseller rank, because then I know who's really got velocity and who's really selling. Now, I do believe that Julie's product over here, our wool slippers, could compete or at least use a similar keyword base to the number one product, because it's a wool like, right? Julie's slippers are wool. This is a wool like kind of product, right? So they've actually modeled wool here. They've modeled the look of wool, but they've done something cheaper. So I think another differentiating factor I'm looking at is, fabrics, styles. I'm really kind of looking at the different keywords within the titles and if they're relevant. And I'm also kind of looking where my product is going to fit within this mix, right? And where I'm going to have to filter than where I can monetize. So looking at all these different listings, the first competitor out of everything I've seen that really sticks with me is these kind of wool-like plush lookalikes. I definitely want to do something with a competitor with high velocity. So I am going to look at that guy. Now, I'm not going to look at the rest though, because I think memory foam is completely irrelevant. I think that these moccasins have a distinct look of actual moccasins. That's a questionable one for me. I continue to go through and I look at fur and I see a lot of foam and I see a lot of like shoe like soles, right? Like the Tom's Women's Classic here. So then I can start to see this. And the reason, not because I'm trying to give you guys this overview of the world of slippers, I'm trying to give you this overview because all of this just falls right into the keyword data. So when you start going into Helium 10, which I'm going to show you, going into WordTree, all of the things I'm talking about are all over the keyword data. So this isn't really just something that I'm seeing and I'm trying to tell you about how I be shopping for some slippers. No, I'm trying to tell you that without question, these are the things that you pay attention to, because when you get your keyword data, these are the things that drive your decisions. So I continue to go through. I've got some terry cloth stuff. I got way more fur. I've got some cutesy little like snoozies down here. I got more ballerina. So I know where I don't apply. I know that the word moccasin is used at least on Amazon, and we'll kind of go back to this in a bit. I know that that's kind of moccasin is definitely being used to define a very true shape of a more of a loafer. Again, you always know what the truth is by looking at what's ranked, because what is ranked is what is selling and what is selling for those keywords. Because we know out of the mouth of babes, we know conclusively that Amazon builds sales history keyword by keyword, right? Everybody in the whole ecosystem around Amazon, whether you're a pro or a novice, you understand that Amazon builds their sales history based on sales data against each keyword. So we know without question that when we put a keyword in, like women's slippers, we know without question that these are the ones that are selling because they have sales history. So it's important to keep in mind that, and then that way you can know how to use that data. So coming with all that kind of initial insight into mind, when I came back over here to our slippers, I immediately said, I went through all the different slipper varieties and I said, okay, we're not, in my opinion, moccasins. We're not, in my opinion, ballet. We're not a true slip-on, because the slip-ons were more like clogs. And I thought, we are really a wool slipper. Hands down, this is a wool slipper. So then from there, I started to kind of pull more data around wool slippers, right? So I'm going to go back to my search results and I'm going to actually type in wool slippers. So then I'm going to start digging around here for the wool slippers that kind of match my styles, right? And make sure I'm still even in the right category. I'm definitely getting into a better place to find true competitors. I wasn't going to find them in organic and I wasn't going to find them in the BSR. So I'm definitely coming over here to say, okay, well, I find them on wool slippers, and I do. The ones that look most like mine, I'm just trying to get my keyword base correct for a new product. I just want to rank it correctly. And I want to make sure when I do drive traffic to this page, to this listing, I get good sales history for my money. So I do want to make sure, regardless of all other factors, I'm looking for keywords that are highly relevant in that mid-tail that describe my features and benefits. So I come in here and say, okay, definitely wool slippers. I'm starting to get, if you're doing an Easter egg hunt, this is getting warm, right? So I'm like, okay, we've got the Glare Ups. To me, that's the brand that's the most like what we have. You know what I mean? They are a wool slipper. They've got this more kind of natural, I'm going to compare them again, this kind of natural, traditional look, right? So then I started questioning, okay, some of these don't look like mine though, right? So again, and this is the life of an advertising person. So if any of you ever wondered how exciting my life is, this is what it's like, because every time I get a product, and if any one of you ever wonder why I don't take every campaign that comes across my desk, it is for this reason, because for me to sell something, I have to understand it front to back, because I'm a sales-driven marketer. So it is exhausting for me. It's not exhausting for you. They're your products. This is your passion business. This is your income stream. But for me to take on the ads, I have to be willing to kind of immerse myself in the product, because to sell something, you have to understand it completely and understand the market and all the competition around it. So I spend a lot of time on that. So as I start to kind of look through this more, I start to say, okay, there's really kind of an issue here where if I'm looking at this, I these glare ups here in the middle and these Heller Vertrieb. And if you do a little more research, these are more European. This is more of a European type look. It's a more sophisticated look. And if you're looking for an immediate benefit to this, okay, so one phase, we could be like, man, we don't match any of these best sellers, right? We could though. These people want some wool slippers up here in number one, but they don't want them everywhere else. If I'm looking at this, it maybe doesn't match, but look at these price points. These are commodity based slippers, right? People are buying them for $19.99, $17.99, $16.99, $13.99. These are fairly low cost commodity based products, right? This is something that you have a really kind of awesome angle in your production and you have cheap production and materials and you're able to do cheap slippers, right? So these are fairly cheap. So when I started looking over, and again, I'm not even 100% sure on our price point yet because it's new, but I believe it's somewhere in the range of $75. So then all of a sudden I knew I was in the right place here, not only because the fabric selection was right. I'm looking for true competitors. The algorithm, I need to know what the algorithm likes for something that's very much like mine. So you can also show up that our bestseller did show up under wool slippers, but they're not wool, they're wool-like. But the only reason we're going to have trouble with that one is the cheap price. So I'm coming over here and I can see, okay, these glare ups are $94 to $212. The Model A is $75 to $212. The Heller Vertrieb boots are $49.90. And then I'm over here, all of a sudden, these ones that look like mine, the price point starts to make sense. And if you have a specialty item, you're not really dependent on volume as much as price and margin. So in some ways, this is very promising, right? It doesn't look like it's going to be like the most generic thing on Amazon. But at the same time, it looks like it has a lot of potential to be something specialized and again, something that's going to have, good margin and good pricing. So I start to look for similar prices. So that's another flag I'm looking for in my similarities of competitive selection. Okay, this is $19.99. I don't believe my product is in that kind of, generic mass manufactured price point. It's much more specialty. It's got a more unique kind of cozy vibe. And now I'm over here seeing these upper prices and they start to really match kind of what I'm trying to do. So then I look at these a little bit further and I say, okay, so the one thing I know I have is I have a wool slipper. That's it. That's the main, when I talk about modified search, I talk about your mid-tail, your shop keywords, features and benefits. Without question, I have a woman's wool slipper to deal with and to sell. So now that I have that kind of defined, I'm going to show you what it looks like in the sheets here in a bit. Once I have that defined, then I'm still looking at this though. And I'm like, it's like some of these match and some of them don't, but they're all close enough. Like definitely I'm going to do great going ahead and targeting wool slippers. But then I started looking a little bit further and I realized that there's this felt, this like texture. Again, I know nothing about slippers, so I start researching these. There we kind of start to really get something that looks a lot like mine, right? Now we're really starting to get interesting compared to where we started. These don't look like mine, but when I get over here, these are starting to really look like mine, minus the hand tooled flowers, but even those are so cozy or higgy that you wouldn't think they were bad. So once again, my price points, when I put the word felt in, the price points start to really streamline out to where my price point is. And I start to see every one of these has this kind of flat, instead of that warm fuzzy, like fuzzy you'll see when we get to the keywords. So instead of having that warm fuzzy fluffy look, I'm starting to see this flat kind of wool look that is going to be the distinct benefit of what I'm selling. So from here, I start to move through it. I'm kind of rocking and rolling and I'm saying, there we are. There we are. There's my slippers. Of course, as I scroll down, they get scary. Like heavens no, I have no idea why the men's moccasin slippers are selling there, especially the camo version. Like some ladies like super Norwegian and then has like a hunter husband. I have no idea what's going on with those camo slippers, but they are somehow ranking under my wool felt. And there's somebody that's sad. There's probably some hunters out there looking for some moccasin slippers and camo and, they're going to wear around the campfire. And then somebody has put their listing on Amazon in some way where they're going to get ranked up with these guys. with like the house slippers, like the ladies, I don't know, sad. But anyway, okay, as we continue to move down, you can kind of see all these like flat wool. They all look very similar. I'm very happy with that. So now I know that the word felt is another kind of keyword in my fabric. And the reason I needed that keyword was I needed to kind of get away from all the fluff. You know what I mean? Like these are all like puffy and fluffy and furry. And I'm just like, okay, I don't have like puffy, fluffy, furry. And I would get down here and it was better. But then at some point there was a lot of puff and fluff and fur. So I ended up thinking, okay, so what's this wool thing? And it ended up being felt. Okay, so that's my product analysis in terms of, okay, what am I selling? Who am I selling it to? And I'm looking for similar styles, similar features and benefits, trying to define my true competitors, trying to define also just based on pricing and texture and look, so that I know that if I do tag these pages later, as you guys can see, I'd be stealing some sales, right? If I end up on the camo moccasins, I'm dead in the water. But if I end up over here, up here with all these little Hygge glare ups, I'd be fine. I'd be good to go. Okay. When I say Hygge, it's a Norwegian word for cozy. Okay. So, cause these are so European and so cute. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the data, right? So that's my Amazon run through. Now I'm going to head into the data. So from here, I go ahead and I pull all my data. And these are my competitors. Okay. Here, I'm going to give you my little like cheat legend of what I've been doing here, so you guys can understand what I'm saying. Okay, if I've highlighted it in yellow, I'm kind of showing you guys a sheet. If I've got it in yellow, that means it's a negative. That means it does not apply. If I have it in blue, that means it's good. There's potential there, and I'm going to try to sell on that. If I have it in orange, that means it's important for me to bring up, because it teaches like something in the lessons that we've discussed, kind of like these small nuances that I like to do in my sorting that you guys ask a lot of questions about. So that's my legend. Yellow is negative. Blue is really good or good, and orange is important because we must treat it a certain way. Okay, so now I go back to competitors. So I've gone ahead and I've pulled my competitors down, right? So with my competitors, I've gone ahead and said, okay, this is my competitive list. This is going to be, as you guys can see, the brands that I think are most relevant are Glare Ups, this brand called Acorn, this Egos Copenhagen, the Made for You Berber and Heller V Tribe. Those are the most, like, if you come right here into G, those are going to be our most relevant brands in terms of this. The reason for that is because these are the guys that look like this. They have similar styling and textures, but they have high velocity in this particular niche. They have high velocity and they have similar styles and textures to my product. Okay, so now I've selected those. Now here on competitors 7 and 8, with those competitors, you can see they have a significantly lower price, which makes them trickier. And you can also see they're different. They're not the same styles. Let's see if we can pop this guy open. Okay, so these are the ones I said that are a bestseller. And remember, these are kind of a wool-like. So what I'm liking about these is that they are wool-like. So somebody that would buy these wants wool slippers, but they may want them cheaper. I don't know if I can convert that traffic, but because it's a real high velocity bestseller and it's similar to mine, I'm definitely adding it to the list. The other bestseller in the BSR that could be worked with mine is this one, this kind of cozy, neutral, non-loading. Come on, slipper. Okay, these kind of fuzzy, neutral, kind of these kind of soft looking things. They're a little puffy, but not too bad, right? So they're not fluffy and they're not like over the top like some of those other ones. They're certainly not memory foam. They have that same vibe as what I'm selling, but they're a little more high volume. So those are going to be how I pulled my competitors. Now, if we want to look at let me go ahead. If I want to show you guys where Julie had gone through her competitors and she had highlighted some of the BSR competitors. You can see these over here. If you go back to the BSR, she was going off of those. And then it's great for me to define that this product is so highly specialized that you do have to go deeper in the keywords. So Julie had kind of gone in this direction and she may have missed her mark had she stayed strictly here. For the simple fact that the price point itself was fairly a flag in the sense, this Acorn is totally dialed in. Some of these are good, but a lot of them are definitely have stylistic things or pricing things. She's got the glare ups in here. That's a really good one. So we can grab a couple of these. Some of these are really working, but there's a few of these key products that could have possibly messed up our density or messed up our listing. So this would be the two in blue are definitely super targeted. The rest all have kind of these questionable things that I've been through. So here was my final competitor list. And as you can see, every single one of them, if I'm looking at my titles of the most relevant products, they all include the word wool, and they all include wool slippers, right? Women's wool slippers. That's my primary keyword, women's wool slippers. So then I went ahead and I got to Helium-10 X-ray. So the very first thing I do is I have my competitors here that I have pulled by doing this kind of targeted search, right? Going in and looking at wool felt slippers, right? And diving deep into the category and trying to define what this product is. So now I've gone ahead and I've pulled the Helium-10 X-ray tool, but not for the same reason that you would use it, right? Helium-10 is that browser application in Chrome that I shut down. It goes on Amazon and pulls you all the listings. Because when I go to the bestseller rank, these products are so different in terms of their fluffy, slip-on, hard-soled memory foam kind of qualities that I feel like for me to advertise confidently on any general keyword, I'm going to have to filter all these keywords out as negative phrase because I can see right away that these are not me. So when I come in to look at that, I go ahead and I take these ones in yellow that I don't think, you just grab the first 20. You don't have to go through all 50 that Helium-10 pulls. Again, this is the X-ray tool. And I start to read these and I say, okay, I don't have memory foam. So negative memory, negative foam. I don't have faux. I don't have any kind of faux anything. Mine are 100% natural organic wool. So there's no faux in this. So I go ahead and use that as a negative. I've got zero fur. Nothing's happening. There's no fur in here. In fact, I don't even think these are lined, but I'm not going to put a negative on lined, but I might end up having to do that later. Next is going to be suede. These are definitely not suede. Suede is a very distinct look. It's a very UGG boot look, and people looking for it like a certain finish. So I'm not suede. I definitely don't have a ballerina slipper. A ballerina slipper, we all know what that looks like. It's more like a tailored flat with a bow on it. I don't have ballerina anything. I don't have, again, back to it, I don't have faux, I don't have ballerina, I don't have suede. And I just kind of went through these. I don't have a slipper. Go back to our style, right? Not ballerina, not suede, not furry, not faux. The main thing that I think is interesting here, though, try to bounce slowly, is the fact that this is a slip-on, sure, but it's not an outdoor. And when you start to look at outdoor, you can really start to see what, when people say outdoor, they mean they're going to wear these things outdoors. Like, I don't know if they wear them to walk the dog. Who knows? But it's got some serious soles on them, right? So people are looking at this. They're not saying delicate daisy slippers. They're saying, I want some rubber soles. I'm going to wear these things in the garage. I'm going to wear these things to walk the dog in the morning. So they want some outdoor slippers. So I definitely have to get in there and put a negative on outdoors, outdoor. And then I keep going. I got no fluffy. I got no foam. I got no outdoor. I'm definitely cozy, but I don't have any kind of thong or a flip flop. Look, I missed that. I have no flip. I have no flop. So come in here and it's actually flip flops. I got none of either of those. And then I come back and okay, so now we got a clog. A clog is definitely a slip-on. And here's the trick. It's such an easy trick, but it's super key you do this on Amazon because Amazon tells you what's relevant. So it's super key that if you're questioning something, you would say a clog. So you could do a clog slipper. You're questioning if that keyword is relevant for you. And then you could start to kind of define it. And I'm looking for true relevance because I'm advertising. So when I start looking at a clog slipper, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, guys, give me 1 minute here. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'll just leave that. I could turn the Wi-Fi off because then I think we're going to get better connection on the load time because we'll be Ethernet connected, which is what I normally do for this class. So hopefully there's no cutout, but I'll be watching. So Okay, so the clogs to me are very chunky. They have big, thick soles, and they're definitely a slide on, right? These clogs are like chunkified. So I don't think we're a clog. In fact, I don't think we're really a slip on either, just based on the fact that slip ons are like slip ons, kind of like these outdoor. I think they're a little more defined. So then I come on through and I'm not plush. I would not consider my slippers plush or fuzzy. Okay, did we catch those? Look at that. We are not fuzzy. Okay. And these are in the top 20 titles on Amazon. So these are the most popular things. So you could almost be certain at some point or another, someone will put this keyword into the browser with women's slippers or house slippers and ruin your search. So there's no reason for you to mine these out later and pay $10, $20 per pop to understand they're not relevant. You know right away they're not. You know they're not foam, they're not memory, they're not plush, they're not fuzzy. You know, you can get rid of all these right now so that you're not stuck. These aren't yarn either. Okay, so you're not stuck paying for those clicks. Okay, so it's a thong slipper. I didn't know they even had such a thing, but I imagine a thong slipper just means it's like a flip flop, and I have none of that. It is a clog. It's got terry lining, and on this one, you know, it's got terry lining. So I did to go ahead. I'm going to put terry in there. No, my slippers aren't terry, they're wool. So then I would keep going, and I have socks. Put it as a negative. We don't have socks. And then if I didn't add these, it's because they were already added in the list, as you guys can see. So over here in my negative list, I've got fluffy, I've got suede. Suede made the cut. It's out of there. I've got faux and fur, and then I keep going. I've got sweater. I put that as a negative. I don't have sweater slippers. I have wool slippers. They're really not a knit, but that's not, I don't really need to worry about that because it could be confusing. Cozy is fine. And then, you know, non-slip sole, which we do have. Okay, so those are going to be my negatives based on the Amazon bestseller. I just pulled this straight out of Helium 10. And I read the titles. Now, you don't have to do this step unless you have a product that is so much different in the features and benefits than what is being sold in the bestseller rank. Now, that's not every product. It's not my products. I mean, I have products that are, you know, that's not the case. But if you have a product and it's going to be all about how stylized your product is, you only need to do this if you have a highly stylized product where the majority of these keywords are not going to define what you sell. And if you get clicks on it, which if you're going after big keywords like women's slippers, you're going to get clicks on these types of searches, right? So that's going to go ahead and show you, you know, right here where you want to filter stuff out. Again, this is the Helium 10 step. Right here in the x-ray was done strictly because I have a stylized product and I need to make sure that people aren't searching for these kind of different things that my product doesn't possess. From there, I went ahead in and I pulled the slippers keywords through the magnet tool. So I went ahead and just put in slippers as a single keyword, right? We would never bid on it up here, 1.6 million. That would be a never ever bid on. But I put the word slippers into Helium 10's keyword magnet, and I went ahead and pulled all my keywords down. From here, I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same filtering. I'm going to put a whole bunch of negatives. I don't need to walk you through it. It's pretty obvious what I did. If it's in yellow, I made it a negative. It's over here in my negative column. Some of these seeds were already negative. Remember, I only use single phrase match for negatives. At this point, as long as I'm not showing up on fuzzy or foam or boys or men's, I'm set. I don't need any more words than that to clean these up. So I go ahead and put my single negatives over here in column K. And then I go in and start looking for stuff that I can actually sell on. So I'm going to go after slippers for women. But just know that slippers for women is only going to work for me because of the negatives I just mined. It wouldn't have worked for me before those negatives. It could have blown some money and it could have been showing up in the wrong places. So without the negative list, slippers for women wouldn't have necessarily worked for me because the best sellers are so different that I had to filter those out before I could effectively target them and spend money on them. So now I'm going to go ahead into women's slippers. It's just a different phrase variation of that really targeted word. We're talking about browse type keywords here, high volume. You know, we're at 273,000. We're at 82,000. House slippers, another high volume, 81,000. Now, when we start talking about match types, I start to look here, and we'll get into the campaign outline here in a bit, but I start to look between these products and I say, okay, slippers for women, you got broad match at 273,000, which means a lot of people put other words, or they just, are broadly searched. So I definitely need to hit that as broad. Exact match is a third the traffic. So I'll do it as exact match, but I got to hit it as broad to really see what I can do. Women's slippers on line 13, it's going to be more equal on that one. But because it's a 2-word phrase, women's slippers, I know from phrase matches, it's a phrase, that I'll most likely get some words in front or behind. I'll probably test that as a phrase. Definitely test it as broad and exact, and you'll see this in the outline. House slippers is another big one for me, and bedroom slippers is worth testing. The word tree report off my top 10 competitors. The top 10 competitors that went into word tree are right here. The report I got off of these, keyword wise, I do the exact same thing. I've already pulled all my negatives. I'm pretty much at this point looking at relevant scores and broad search volume and exact search volume. And I'm trying to define what keywords, that I want to be searching for in terms of which keywords I want to be targeting. People are going to be searching for. If I'm going into browse, I'm talking about house slippers and women's slippers. House slippers for women, it's about the same. From here, I want to be looking at bedroom slippers as something I could potentially test. I am going to, test a shorter variation of this from the other list. Now, women's moccasin slippers is an interesting one to bring up because it is moccasin. When we go back to Amazon, All Instinct shows us these. Not that it shows us, it's not instinct. What the search results, and I cannot for the life of me spell moccasin. Every time I misspell it, it cracks me up it's stuck in my head, not how it should be. Moccasin slippers. So when I pull moccasin up, you can see there's this very laced loafer style. So when people search for moccasin slippers, I'm seeing very few that don't have that little tie. I don't feel like mine is really going to work there. There's going to be one more signal I got that makes me interested in testing because they're shaped like a true moccasin. If you're really thinking moccasin, these are dialed in. But for some reason, the way people search on Amazon, moccasin defines this. So when the average American or person coming to Amazon shops for moccasin, they shop like this. Now, when I think of moccasin, I would be in agreement. These could be a moccasin. But I think when people on Amazon think of moccasin, it looks like it's very different. And it's definitely got this kind of signature lace up bow thing going on. So even though it is a moccasin, it may not be the right keyword for this product because people shopping on Amazon want fur-lined loafers with thick soles and a bow on them. So that is what you can see. That's what people buy. Fur-lined, suede, thick-soled loafers with a bow. That's how they're defining moccasin. So would I think moccasin is a fit? I'm not exactly sure on that. My initial instinct was no, it's not a fit. I don't have a moccasin slipper the way Amazon defines it or my shopper defines it. So that was my take there. But as you can see up here, the real moccasins, $47.95. We do have moccasins without question. I just don't know if the shopper will appreciate that or recognize it, and I don't want to pay for the clicks. Okay, so now I'm going to come back in. That was a questionable keyword. One more thing again in the orange that I think is important is, these slides for women. You always want to avoid keywords, that don't include the word slipper at this point. I'm just testing, right? So I wouldn't put slides for women. I wouldn't even do slides. It's a negative actually. But I wouldn't either way. If this was totally targeted, I wouldn't do it. It needs to have the word slipper in it for me to test it at this point. Another thing is house shoes. This is not a shoe. And the reason I say it's not a shoe is it could be a shoe to us. But when we look at what the shopper is seeing, there's a distinct sole on these guys. These are soled slippers. They're thick soles, rubber soles, all the way through and through. These are, like I said, dog walking slippers. Like these are garage slippers. These are not indoor slippers. When they're looking, even look at these moccasin soles. They're thick, right? They're really kind of got a thick rubber sole on all of them. So when I come back over here, these are not shoes. House shoes is going to be a negative for me. It's over here in my negatives right there. So the next thing I thought I should point out is people ask me this question all the time in class. Do I do plurals and singulars? I do not in my initial test phase. So I have women slippers and then I have women's slippers. So I'm going to bid up here on women's slippers with 82,000 broad searches and 50,000 exact match searches on line 13. And then down here, I have women's slippers on line 20 with a fraction of the search volume, about 25%. I'm super not interested in that. I'm not going to test that. That's why it's in orange. I'm going to do the women's. I'm going to go ahead and look at women's slippers versus women. And I'm going to take the one with the highest volume. So that's going to be my winner. That's not going anywhere. Bedroom slippers will test. Moccasin is very questionable for me. And I'll show you why I may test it. Because indeed, we are shaped like a moccasin, and maybe with all those negatives, we can make it work. And it won't be enough volume to really kick in if it's not going to convert. Okay, so then again, Wordtree, I just go through, do the same thing, but most of it I'd already caught in Helium-10, but I did catch a few new jewels, and also Wordtree with its relevant score kind of reiterated some of the things that I wanted to see there. Now, I went into Helium-10 and I pulled the keywords for just wool slippers, because that is the most important thing. I have wool slippers. It's going to be my defining keywords. It's going to be the thing that mostly defines what I sell. It's going to build the strongest sales history. It's going to convert the highest. It has to be the seed keyword I optimize from, wool slippers. So within there, you can see my 2 yellows, which we've already added to the other negative sheet. We're doing no shoes, and we're doing no clogs. We do not have either of those things. Back to my plural versus singular, I've got wool slippers here. I'm selling a pair, 2 of them, 2 slippers. So I'm not interested in wool slipper. I do not have 1 wool slipper for sale. Okay, so now I come back over to my negatives. And originally, I had added moccasins as a negative for all the reasons I explained to you guys. Thick sole, bow tie, loafer look. Even though we do have a moccasin shape. And I thought, So I added it as a negative. Everything else is all the negatives compiled from over here. I went and grabbed them out of my magnet, grabbed them out of these titles, put them together in one list, and removed duplicates. And it gave me a final negative list. And then from here, this moccasin keyword, the reason it came back in and it's orange is because Julie had done some awesome, just so you can see, her own research was next level. I mean, man, she jammed. She did everything. It's so good. So she did all this killer keyword research that I went ahead and dug into before I started. And the one thing she did that was very useful is 2 of the competitors that I thought were highly relevant, which would be this Glare Ups and Acorn. She had also already pulled their Helium-10 Cerebro data. So I went ahead to review those to see, okay, from Cerebro, she's done a reverse ASIN search on these. And I wanted to see if I could find additional keywords that maybe I hadn't targeted, or even just reiterate in blue the ones that I thought were really good. And again, on these very comparable products, very comparable, you could see they use bedroom slippers and moccasin slippers. So it made me think that I would test moccasin slippers, but I'm going to believe that I'm going to pull it out of my campaign outline again, just from my research right now, because if we go look at it again, the key would be here. Let's go ahead. Now, Acorn is the brand. So let's go back over to Amazon. We know what moccasin looks like. Let's go ahead and look for Acorn. Is it a single? I think it's a 1 word. Acorn slippers for women. Okay, so their moccasin slippers, their mock slipper is a bit more like a loafer. Am I right? It's still a loafer. They don't have anything that looks like some of these are more boots. They're more booties. Booty's an interesting word there, booty. So these booty slippers are more like ours. Again, compare. I'm worried the moccasin is still a loafer. When I see a moccasin in the shopping, there it is again. It's a loafer, So I'm going to say no on moccasin. It's going to stay in my negative list, and I'm going to remove it from my campaign outline. So it does absolutely go as a yellow. It's going to go as a yellow. And the best way to research that stuff is on Amazon. So, okay. So there's those things. I also found a couple of jewels, low search volume, but very targeted around ladies' slippers, which I do have, and indoor slippers, because my style is very indoor. It's very much an indoor slipper. You can see difference of the sole. It's got nice traction on it, but it's the kind of sole that you could get cozy. Or there was some on the bottom. I don't think, see, the sole has got the pattern on the bottom. So you can see it's not a thick enough sole that I'd want to be cruising the neighborhood in these as an outdoor shoe. But I would be very interested in wearing them inside because they don't have that clunky sole, right? I think actually the feature and benefit of this product is that I could put my feet up on normal things in the house because I don't have this cloddy, really hard sole bottom, So I think that one of the unique design features in this is that it doesn't have that sole. So it's definitely an indoor slipper, or a house slipper really defines it for those reasons. So from there, I look at the Glare-Ups, which is an additional competitor that Julie had pulled. And I can see there, okay, the felt slippers, that's key. I knew these were felted. So here we find felt slippers, and Glare-Ups is the most similar to our product in price and style and texture. It's very similar. So I have felt slippers, and I have wool slippers, and I have home slippers. Nice variations. I have wool, but home and felt will both be new keywords. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, after all that is done, I go ahead over to my campaign outline. I build this out to go into Amazon. So now we open up a blank campaign outline, and I had set all these up, and I'll kind of show you the process, but you guys went through it. So essentially the first thing I'm going to do is I'm in phase 1. Right? Let's go ahead and highlight that one in blue. We are in phase 1 because we have no data. We can't get to phase 2 with scale and buy and single keywords until we have sales data from the search term report, which we'll cover on Thursday. So today I'm in phase 1, 100% looking at what I'm looking at is brand new data. It's all testing. It's all money to be tested. It's all going to be a small bet. I need to make my bets wisely. So at this point, I'm going to bet on my brand, on shop, which is these highly defined feature and benefit type keywords, and then on browse with a heavy negative list, right? Heavy duty negatives right out the gate to make sure that I end up on the right pages. So that's going to be my strategy, is brand, shop, browse, mega negatives, because I have a uniquely styled product. So that's going to be where we go in phase 1. Phase 2, when we get some data, we'll be able to dive in and do some of this. And then down here is my auto campaign for phase 3. If I have an open budget, I can run it in phase 1. If I have a tight budget, I save it for phase 3. So there's your auto. Now, another key note here is that my budget is $500 a day. Set that wherever you're comfortable for testing. That happens to be my normal test budget. Next, I have my guesstimate bids. These are complete guesstimates. They're not at all accurate. They're just placeholder bids that I'm going to use so that when I get into the campaign manager and I go to actually put these keywords in the campaign manager, I'm going to get an estimated bid from Amazon, and I'm going to use that to set my actual bid. And then from there, as I bid to rank, I'm going to be increasing my bid for ranking. So the bid is completely in fluctuation over the first 7 to 10 days. It's not a stable metric. So whatever you put here doesn't really matter, because you're going to adjust that bid based on what the keywords tell you inside the Amazon advertising platform in terms of the estimated bid range. And you're going to be adjusting your bid to rank by increasing it incrementally to get some more visibility. So these bids are not going to be static, nor is most things in advertising not static. So they're just a placeholder. Same with my auto. It's significantly lower, but it's a placeholder to see what I can do. So that's going to be the campaign outline. I've gone ahead, I've got my ASIN ready to go. I've got my title. So another quick detail to cover here is based on our keyword research. I would say that this title, I've got it in orange down here on line 20. I would say this title has been, is probably not the right word combination based on the keyword research that I've done. I do not believe these are a moccasin. I believe they are absolutely a moccasin in their shape, but I don't believe that they are a moccasin based on the way the Amazon shopper buys, which is all I care about because I'm selling stuff. Slippers. Okay. So, and I can do women too, just in case the men are stylized differently. Now, from here, we start to see a little bit of a different one, but not much. It's still a lot of these loafers. Loafers. And then the moccasins here, those aren't even moccasins and they're knit. So again, I think you have a really distinct loafer style on moccasin. So to me, it's not going to be the right keyword for my title space. That's so important to conversion. I'm going to say that my correct title, or at least something in the vicinity, would be a women's wool slipper, right? So in slippers plural, because we know that's how it's searched. So it's Tamar women's wool slippers. When I talk about using the right keywords at the front of the listing, because sometimes they get cropped to about 5 words or 7 words, depending on the ad space, especially on mobile. That's what I mean. I've got my brand name. It's Tamar. but I've added women's wool slippers. This would be where you'd have a problem on that clip I've discussed, is if Julie had possibly used this title, we would have ended up with Tamar women's moccasin indoor. That would have been what someone saw searching for slippers. They wouldn't even have seen the word slippers in some instances. If it was cropped, it could get to the fifth word. If it got to the fifth word, you'd be good to go. If it was any shorter than that, you would have lost something in here. And then I think you're still going to see people seeing that word moccasin, which is not the key drive here. You really want to get up here in this like higher funnel of women's slippers, right? So the Tamar women's wool slippers, looking at the product description, get back to our main one here and our bullets. The main like features and benefits of this product is that they're 100% natural. I might put 100% in this title as well. They're natural and they're organic, and then she has used the exact fabric, felt, right? And felted is a stylistic thing that people search for, but it is a wool felt. So coming back over here to my titles, I'm probably going to say, I'm going to move this over. Coming back to my titles, I'm going to say it's organic, or I would say 100% natural. You can test both. They're both very good. It's a wool felt slippers. She had here that it was a comfy slip-on. I do think those slippers slip on your feet, but I think that the Amazon shopper considers the slip-on to be more like, let's look. That's what I thought. Like a slip-on. No back. Nothing. Like a clog. That means they don't want to heel on. Most of these don't have a heel. Like that is kind of the defining factor of the top ranked products. So when someone says slip on, they don't mean heel. So a few of them have these puffy McPuffs in the back, but they're really more of a clog style or a mule style. They're not going to be really a full booty like ours are these really cute all around cozy booties. But if we go look at our competitors, we have, in looking at titles from the competitors, you can really see here that the ones that are relevant, again, the orange ones aren't especially relevant. They're just high volume. Our most relevant titles, they use all these different words that I'm pointing out here. If you're looking for frequency and word order, you're seeing they say wool slippers. They're kind of saying cozy house shoes. Now, ours don't have a sole, so they're not shoes. So let's go back to that to kind of discuss in the campaign outline your cozy house boots. And maybe even after what I read there, it would be booties. We saw booties in the slipper world. Okay. So it might be organic wool felt slippers, cozy house booties or cozy house boots. But I don't believe they would be house slippers and they would be house booties or house boots. They would be cozy. I think cozy defines really the style of the product. That's a good benefit. They're organic, huge benefit. Natural, huge benefit. Wool, if you want to add the word felt, that's like the styling of the fur. And so the styling of the, it is sheep's wool. So that's the styling of the finish. So then on here, I would say that I wouldn't include words like moccasin. I wouldn't include shoes. I wouldn't include slip-on, and I wouldn't include bedroom in this particular title until I saw conclusive data that these are the keywords that converted. I would stay more in my unique features and benefits, which is the felt, the wool, the women's, organic, anything natural, booties. They're for the house because they're much cozier than the outdoor styles. And those would be my things that would be focused on those keywords down here in blue. So that would be my title optimization. From here, I went ahead and I created let's go ahead and talk about my main keywords. I pulled them over just straight off of my Helium 10 list, the blue stuff you guys saw. And I went ahead and said, okay, here's my browse keywords, my high volume keywords that I really want to target for the category. Slippers for women, women's slippers, house slippers for women. I'm going to hit all 4 of those in the browse cycle. Then I'm going to say, okay, my real shop keywords, features and benefits is not going to be moccasin slippers. Again, it was something that I was questioning, should I test? Because I saw that one competitor had a moccasin slipper, very much that Acorn competitor. But when I went and re-looked at Acorn, I saw that their moccasins were indeed loafers. So let's make sure we don't confuse ourselves. Okay, so with that, I go ahead in my shop and I say wool slippers for women, felt slippers, indoor slippers, bedroom slippers, ladies slippers, home slippers. These are all unique features and benefits. And I put ladies and home down here because, I don't need them up in brows. They're not high volume enough to get up here in this like early cycle. They're probably a little more targeted and inexpensive. But the main shop keywords are these. I do believe if I'm looking at shop keywords, I'm saying these are wool, these are felt, these are indoor. They have a unique styling from a feature and benefit standpoint that makes them indoor. A lot of the other ones are big and bulky. This would be a unique selling position for me, that mine were a little more sleek and a little more cozy and a little more acclimated to the bedroom, right? This would be another one that would work too, right? I believe these would be much more bedroom slippers than some of those clunky McFunky ones that, I would hate to see someone get into bed with these big clogs, right? Like these number twos, like with those big black soles and those fur, like, geez, you'd be going out to, I don't know, like maybe hunt deer, but not get into bed. So I would think these are definitely an indoor or a bedroom would be a nice keyword to test, as you can see over here. So from there, I go in and I say, okay, I like ladies and I like home, and I add those in because they were kind of variations from my competitors that were relevant. Up here is my brows. Once again, just slippers for women, house slippers. These are definitely house slippers. They are not an indoor outdoor style. They're just an indoor style. So definitely my house slippers are probably going to be my highest converter, at least in my guesstimate. So I go ahead and I set these up. So if I'm looking at slippers for women, I'm going to say that has a stop word, right? It's a full sentence, slippers for women. It's going to be fine as broad. It's going to be great as exact. If I look at women's slippers, that's a good phrase match. It's a 2-word phrase. I'm sure people are going to put words in front of it and behind it, because over here in our Helium 10 research, we saw that there was a lot, right? A lot of broad volume on these keywords. And so we know that we're going to get some more exact phrase matching in that particular variation. So I'm going to test it. House slippers is the same story. I'm going to test it as broad and exact and as phrase. House slippers for women, I'm doing as exact and broad. Those are going to be my browse keywords. And again, I'm going to get quick data. Only some of these match types are going to work. And I'm going to pause my keywords, as you guys know, fairly early on. As soon as they go past a certain number of clicks, like 10 plus clicks with no sales, they're gone. As soon as they hit an ACoS over like 50%, 70%, they're gone. So it's not as if I'm going to run all these match types forever, but I am going to run them to see which ones take off and get traction, because you just don't have any data at this point and you have to test. Next is going to be my shop keywords. I did the same thinking. It's just when I look at a keyword, I say, okay, what did the report say? A lot of broad match, a lot of exact match, has to be both. Then I say, okay, if it's a wool slippers, in that instance, I'm going to say that there is most likely, I got some phrase match there. It's a phrase, wool slippers. People will put words before and after that. Wool slippers for women, not so much. It's not really a phrase. It's more like a broad and exact. Broad just means it's like a variation of that thought or that search. And exact means it's the exact search phrase. I go ahead, I target these ones that are kind of, I'm really testing like indoor and bedroom. I don't even bother with phrase because I'm just seeing what they do. Felt, I just get them in there as broad and exact. Last step, I take these keywords that are so good. These are all my keywords right here. So what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. 12 keywords total out of my list. I'm going to target 12 keywords, and then they're going to get turned into whatever's over here. So, at least double that, right? With match types, maybe 2.5 times that. And then I go ahead and take my most, significant keyword phrases like slippers for women, women's slippers, house slippers, right? I go ahead and I add those with my brand keyword, right? So on that one, I actually overlooked a variation that I would do. We'll add it in now. So if I add my brand, my slippers, I just add all the key phrases, especially wool slippers, and my own brand. I go ahead and search on Amazon for Tumar, and there's nothing else showing up. So it's not going to be competitive with another brand. Like, you put in the word hammer and it could mean, baking soda, or it could mean a hammer with a nail, right? Like some brands, you can't really put in your single word brand because it's too broad. Like we talked about, like with Lee on Lee Jeans. But Tumar is not broad. So I'm happy just to put my single brand word in. Then I have Tumar slippers, Tumar wool slippers, Tumar women's slippers, slippers for women. I just kind of went through all of these targeted keywords. I don't need to, from here, I can also go ahead and add what I had skipped there, which was house slippers. I definitely want to add that guy. It's both broad and exact. That way I've got all my main seeds. You could go deeper, but you don't need to. As long as I hit wool and I hit house and I hit women's and I hit my brand, I'm not going to miss. And I hit the word slipper and I have all the different match types. I'm not going to miss any data there. Let me go ahead and sort this guy. Move that back up. And that is the campaign outline. So from here, you can see my single negative phrase match, all my single words, campaign outline, and that is it. Show's over. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up for questions and